Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the very unfiltered Rise with me, your host, Heidi Love. And today we are back and we are going to be talking about a few very interesting little endpoints that we need to kind of gather together. Not that they necessarily go, I would say it flows, but it doesn't necessarily all go, but it matters for the future. So we're going to go there. As much as I have been able to study, I have been finding some interesting little loopholes. And I say as much as I have been able to study because I keep getting 503s. So that's interesting. You know, I do think that one might be the three-letter agencies, not the real ones, right? The church that likes to refer to themselves as three letters. Maybe on that one. But do I think that's all them, this whole thing? No, there's no Danites anymore. I mean, maybe the Mormon Mafia, but they're not gonna bother with me. So, long story short, they're probably just gonna do what they're doing, inhibit me studying the things they don't want me to get out there. But I found a couple things that are pretty interesting. But to start this off, we're going to go right into the rest of Ipswich. We didn't really cover as much as I'd like there, and this isn't a huge history lesson, but nevertheless, I feel like it's something that we should cover. So we'll open it up with this fun little statement here. So this is something that somebody read and wrote down from Ipswich dot I believe it's net, and I found it pretty interesting. So this is what it says. All right, Salem. I love to think of old Ipswich town, where they shut up the witches until the day when they should be roasted as thoroughly brown. In Salem village, 12 miles away, they moved it off for a stable now, but there are notes where the stout jail stood, and at night they say that over the holes you can see the ghost of Goody Coles. Whoo! I don't know. And by the way, for those of you, maybe make a comment down below, but I remember the witches being burned. I don't remember this hanging business at all. This whole gallows hill hanging. No, hanging is brutal, but like burning is something different. And from somebody that has very serious, I have a very serious burn from when I was young that had to have skin graft and the whole dealio. And luckily, it's nowhere seriously visible. But normally, I would tell people, but hey, I have to live like all weird now. But yeah, I would just say burning is worse. Yeah, no. So I remember it. I mean, burned at the stake, right? Like, oh, that's what I always heard, but whatever. Now apparently it's hanging. So even this poem states, yeah, that they were burning him. So I don't know what's going on there. But we are going to talk a little bit about Ipswich, its creation, and the rest of what was going on there. So in 1633, as we discussed, John Winthrop Jr. came to an area called Agawam. And he made friendly relations and an alliance with a chief there. And the chief's name was Masconomet. Okay. And he was the sagamore of the local native population. He was able to buy the area and deed and the entire region for 20 pounds. Yikes. So a little over $20. Okay. And then they renamed it Ipswich by the year 1634. By the end of 1634, the population soared from 13 to 110 families that poured into it. Now, if you guys remember originally when we spoke about this, there were 9, but now that I've been reading more and more, now they're saying possibly 12 people that originally went there to settle the area, one of them being named Thomas Heed. He's pretty important. We're going to talk about him. We're going to talk about some of the other settlers there, but there's some pretty important people that are going to be popping up from this 9 or 12, like either way, a magical number. Yeah, interesting. So we're going to get into that and we'll get right back at it here. It was a whole situation before where a lot of people immigrated and they were like workers or, kind of mountain men type thing. This one was not that. I don't know what was sold to them when they did move here, but these were different caliber of people. These were lawyers. These were, more high society, okay, highfalutin people. All right. And I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why, like I said, what he sold to them. But originally, John Winthrop Jr. is actually living there. He went and wanted to make sure that they secured the border from French Canadian Jesuits. Yeah. If it isn't one, it's the other, right? And so he's there. And, he left shortly after settling the area. I think it was 6 years, if I remember correctly, but don't quote me on that. His wife and their daughter died. And so that was very sad. And he wanted to leave the area. Weird thing, one little weird thing about that. And John Winthrop Jr. has been fine. Everything that I've researched has been pretty good. But he did marry his cousin, and so I'm like, "Oh, with the bloodline thing, I don't know what's going on there, but yeah." And we're gonna talk about that even more here shortly. So, she did pass away, the baby passed away, but, this whole situation was created to be a utopia, and there are books and everything about this, and just one of many was, by Stephen Miles, and it's called John Winthrop's City of on a Hill and William Penn's Holy Experiment. And this experiment was supposed to be a utopian society where they all could live in peace, even with different, religions, backgrounds, whatever. And he made like little separations, like a three-part plan. Like they would be like A, the housing unit lots, and the village center. B is planting and tillage, lots of crops, maize, barley, rye, all of that. And C was salt marshes and thatch lots of native grasses for animals, etc. So depending on what you did, that depended on where you got your land. And you couldn't just roll into town and be like, "Hey, I want some land." That's not how it worked. John Winthrop Jr. ultimately had the say so, but they would vet these people over a specific period of time, and then they would decide whether they wanted them in their community or not. So, and the men that ran the towns were called selectmen. And according to these websites that I've been on, Ipswich dot, I believe it's net. I'll find it for sure, but it may, yes, Ipswich.net. They say the selectmen were very wealthy, according to this website. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know what's going on there, but we'll talk about it. All right. So when we get to this whole situation, we see the French family, we see the Smith family, we see all these people, and a lot of these homes still exist today. So you guys can check that out. Even an inn, aka tavern, that one's fun. That was owned by these relatives of, the Smiths, literally. Robert Boxford, he was Robert Smith. He was the first relative that came here, and he definitely was important, even though they tried to hide that and say, "Oh, we don't know what he is or where he is, or he was just an indentured servant at the end." He's on court records and stuff. So yeah, we can find it. All of this like I don't want to say euphoria. That sounds weird. All of this love one another. We'll do that. All of this utopia, as he put it, right, is interesting because we know eventually this becomes a hysterical area, like literally. And we know that it also has a huge downfall in 1641 when they codified legislation and legalization for slavery. All right. And this begins after the Pequot stronghold over the area because they were fighting for what was theirs, right? And they, they lost. And they took these surviving women and children who were held captive as slaves, and they would distribute them among the elites in Ipswich. All right. They were forced to be slaves, forced to do like house duties, all that. I don't know about y'all, but I couldn't go to bed at night knowing some lady is cooking me dinner that I took her kids away and maybe killed her husband or whatever. And you think you're going to go to sleep at night. Like, you must sleep like crap because I'm telling you, I would never sleep again. That's crazy bananas. Like, that, no. And then they wanna say they're like wild savages on top of it. So what is happening here? Whose bad idea was this? This seems like a very bad idea. Yeah. No, I'm not doing that. So as I mentioned, they separated these people's families and the adult males and boys that were old enough that fought, they put them onto ships and sent them to Bermuda or the Caribbean. What? Like that may as well be Mars. Like at that point in time, that is wild. I can't even imagine. Like, how scary would that be? And you're just all of a sudden on a ship, and then you're in the middle of some crazy new land where you don't even know what's going on. That is wild. So, you know, whatever. But this is a this is a hot mess express all day long. So, yeah. The remaining captives were basically only about 500, and they were stripped of their identity. There were frequent escapes. There was one guy that quoted, "This was a yoke they could not take." I mean, no kidding. I can't even imagine like you're all of a sudden forced to stay inside all the time or whatever, or like forced to be in fields working 24/7. Like they were not used to this kind of life in general. And on top of it, that's crap. But it's just, yeah, that's wild. So there were frequent escapes, like I said, and they started understanding that they would have to somehow communicate with them because they're trying to figure out what to do, right? So they go through this guy named Casa Cinnamon. Like I don't know. It's Acinamon. So really that's how it looks to me anyway. But they eventually carefully begin trusting one another in some sort of way. And yeah, they do realize, but not now. All this started in 1637. By 1655, yeah, 55. Holy cow. They eventually are like, seems like a bad idea. You think? Like, "What? What are you doing?" Yeah, so they recognize keeping these people might be a bad plan, no kidding, and they start, collaborating for like, "Well, what do we do about this?" Right? Well, before when John Winthrop Jr. first started with this and he had the slaves, he, like, used them at first, and I'm not saying he didn't not ever use them again, but he started to be friends with them, and he saw that they were useful members of society, basically, and so, he didn't wanna let them go, and also I mean, also probably free work, but I don't at this point, we've got the Mohican tribe and Uncas, okay, who is supposed to get these people back, and they aren't even supposed to have, like, a name, like, of their tribe anymore. They're supposed to be absorbed into this other tribe, and it's all very bad. Like, if they give them over, I mean, clearly, you know what's gonna happen. They're just gonna kill them, and there's hardly any of them left, and he's like, "Ugh, I don't know about this," like, and I'm sure even they know at this point, like, they might be safer there than out. And so, he doesn't let him go, and for those of you that have watched, The Last of the Mohicans, this is the story. All right, and so these warriors, they get together. Uncas wants to try and force this whole situation to happen because it's been going on, and he keeps like, "Let him go, let my people go," and he's like, "No, bro, it's not happening." So they're going back and forth forever. So he decides, despite being told to cut it out, he's gonna do a show of force anyway. He busts in their doors. He like scares the crap out of everybody. He doesn't hurt any English people. All right. But he was also told by John Winthrop Jr., if you do, this is an act of war against the crown. So he decides, maybe I shouldn't do this. Right. And so he backs up a little bit, but not much. He's just like, "Oh, okay, I'll back up for a second." But Winthrop is just still doing this stronghold, and his dad is super worried about it. He's like, "I just wish you wouldn't have got involved in this. Like, mind your own business. Like, mind your business." Yeah, he was upset. And all John Winthrop Jr. can think of is if he lets them go and returns them, they're going to be annihilated. So in 1649, he warns his son almost like literally on his deathbed. He writes him a letter stating, like, please, son, you need to beware of too much knowledge and also give up the Pequots. And he's like, yeah, no, I'm not doing it. It's too bad he didn't live to see that they did come to some sort of situation. I'm not saying this is perfect. I'm just saying this is better than what it was. But in 1655, the colonial government recognizes, hey, we got to fix this up. And they start establishing reservations by 1666. We're going to take some more than 10 years to fix it. But yeah, I don't know why. Like, just mark a piece of land and be like, here you go. But no, that's not really what happened. And also, they got to keep their name. And there was a lot of good things this guy was trying to do, too. Like, I mean, I've said that before. I say it again. There's only one weird thing so far. He married his cousin. That's a little awkward. I don't know. It's another time. I don't know. Whatever. It's strange. But we do know in Ipswich, you know, originally these certain families go with him, like we talked about, to secure that border. There's either 9 or 12, but eventually there's a whole bunch of people there. And then so I go to, the website, that's this historical website, this Ipswich dot I keep forgetting net or org. And it had these maps. I wish I could show them to you guys. They're so cool. But it has all these early settler names and like where they had their lots and everything, kind of like now, like they do that still. Land surveyors and stuff do that all the time. And so anyway, long story short, I started looking at these names and I was like, you don't say. Because you're going to see why. If you are an ex-Mormon, if you are a current Mormon, if you have read a lot about Mormons, you're going to know. So these are some of the most important ones that I wrote down. There's more than this, plenty more. There was 5 maps. You guys can go look. It's not a chargeable site. They don't do that. It's like where the town notes and everything are. And it's really a good site. So anyways, these are the names that I picked out that I was like, oh, all right. So the first one is Kimball. Of course it is, right? Like Cooley, Tuttle. Remember that one. Let's see. Brewer, Martin, White, Payne, Wilds, Smith, multiple, Lord, French, Jackson, Lee, Brown, Fuller, Kingsbury, Knight, Whipple, Scott, Hubbard, Bishop, Winthrop, Manning, Bennett, Younglove. I wonder if that is going to be Young, like at some point. I didn't research that yet, so I'm not sure. Wells, Grant, Knowlton, Hunt, Clark, Dudley, and Brewer. I think I might have repeated a couple. I did repeat Brewer twice. Now, I saved the best for last. I know it's a joke. I'm joking about the Dorcas thing, but I'm sorry. Dorcas of Assington almost may have some competition because there is some people in this area and their name is Shatswell. Yeah. Shatswell. I'm sorry if that's your name. If they had been Shatswell from Assington, I might have lost it. I don't even know. I don't know if I could have gone on. So eventually, look, Winthrop Jr., he bounces out. They beg him to stay. They literally petition the courts and be like, don't leave us, bro. We talked about this last time. But he did, and he was sad, and I get it. Like, come on, his kid and stuff. Like, yeah, not good. And so Thomas French the third, okay, if you've forgotten, don't forget, Thomas French is literally the grandpa to Robert Smith's kid, and he's raising him. All right. Thomas Smith. So, yeah, important names. So, we got to keep these in our little. Now, remember, these are quick and dirty. So, occasionally I'm going to pause it if I have to cough because they're still doing little fires to like make the fires not be worse with controlled burns and whatever here. So, me and my asthma are having trouble. But anyway, Thomas French. So, and Thomas Smith. You're going to want to remember that one too. These are important. And he becomes the constable selectman Of course. And, these guys are the people that basically run the town. Select men, according to that website, they say they're super wealthy guys. Yeah. So that's going to be important because not only is this guy related, and I mean like directly related. Okay, this is his uncle to any of Joseph Smith's, family, but also almost every single one of his direct grandfathers. I don't think Joseph Smith Sr. was, but Ozael, all the rest of them are selectmen. So pretty interesting there. And I do want to say, they had these scandals with the servants and the wars and the Pequots and all of it. That was bad. I mean, bad enough there, right? Yeah, it gets weirder. I won't say worse. It just gets weird. And so when we look when we look at some of the other things that are going to happen, it leads us to this other point where I was like, what on earth? Like what on literal earth? And I've never heard this anywhere else. So I mean, I'm sure I'm not the first one to figure it out. I'm just sure I'm the first one that's going to say it. So the other family members there that I found really interesting about, I said Tuttle. So Tuttle's for a review, right? Robert of Boxford, the very first one here that was related to Smith. Robert Smith, they just say Robert of Boxford because he founded a town and stuff, even though he's probably a poor farm boy that doesn't know how to read. Anyways, he does. He stayed with the Tuttles. Okay. So Joanna Tuttle. And I found this just really interesting that this little piece right here. So Simon Tuttle and Isabel Wells of Northampton, England, had two sons. Okay. And they immigrated here on the ship Planter in 1635. Well, John married a lady named Joanna Antrobus of Ipswich. Joanna. Yeah, that one. The one that helped Robert Smith. And he lived with her and he was her indentured servant, but he actually was fiercely loyal to her for the rest of his life. And he ends up not being an indentured servant anymore and getting a whole bunch of land. And he testified for her in court. So there's one. Okay. And then William moves south to help settle New Haven. Okay. So these are definitely important people, right? And this family connection stayed in Connecticut. And they eventually have a child named Lydia Tuttle. All right. And Lydia is fascinating because Lydia Tuttle, and this is according to the Daughters of the American Revolution source and Ancestry. Okay. So I have vetted this 110% because this one is a little wild. I was a little shook. But this Lydia, all right, ends up being directly related to Lumen Walters. Yeah. And for those of you that have been around Mormonism for a long time or learned about Mormonism for a long time, whoa. Okay. I was shocked. So Lydia is his paternal grandmother. All right. And for those of you that don't know about Lumen, and I'm sure he's going to keep coming up because as one does when you're a magician. Lumen Walters or Loom Walters, right, is, and I quote, a drunken vagabond money digger who had been a physician in Europe. Okay. And this person had learned in Europe the secrets of mesmerism or animal magnetism. Way important. Okay. That was a quote from the Church of Christ Disciples, 1884. So the Church of Christ is the RLDS church. And this is going to get a little like people always say, but the Mormons are all the same. So if you're not familiar with it, there is the LDS and that's like the mainstream. That's what I was. And then there's the RLDS, which is the Reformed Latter-day Saints, which they were like polygamy. No. And also they actually were better about women. So, I mean, there's that. They have a lot of other, I'm not going to go into their theology right now. I'm sure we will get there. But for that, we're just going to leave that alone. And then there's the FLDS, which is, and we call them the fundies. And I know that's rude. I just don't know, but that's what they're called. And that is the fundamentalists. They look like kind of like Amish or like Little House on the Prairie stuff. Like they're completely off the grid and they do things way different than everybody else. Actually, they're probably better Mormons than any other Mormons because they go by the old theology and they are like, no, we're not changing it for anything. So go suck it. And yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so, but there's branches and there's branches on branches on branches on, there's so many different Mormons. I mean, really. Okay. So the next little piece of fun is from Ezra Stiles' diary. And this is the name Thomas Heed. Okay. And eventually, and we're going to get back to Lumen in just one second, but I want to mention this. Thomas Heed eventually has his name changed to Hale. So Heed, and I hate that this happens in America. They change the, like, that's not a hard one. That's not like Francicillo Malello or whatever. It's not some crazy name. I don't know why he did that, but it changes. Okay. So Heed is the indentured servant to John Winthrop Jr., and he marries into the French line, which is completely related to, yeah, it gets so confusing, but yes, to Thomas French, who is Smith, completely that line. And so on the maternal side. And when we look at this, we know that the Smiths and Hales are not supposed to connect until Emma and Joseph. And that is a super lie because the Heed line, AKA the Hale line, right? He marries a lady named Anne French. And Anne French is from the Dorcas, like that's the other sister. Okay. And she is the one that became a midwife. And even though I can't prove it, she is listed as a midwife on the town minutes and everything like that. But I can't prove that when John Winthrop Jr. trained her or anything, but like he trained women. Okay. He trained women so much that there is a book called from 2001, John Winthrop's City of Women. Okay. This is like everybody knows. And she has a direct line in because her sister Dorcas and her sister Susan are working in the home of John Winthrop Jr. as indentured servants, but actually they know they were friends before. So that's the one Thomas that is really, really close to him and his like bestie. Okay. And he's like everywhere where John Winthrop is. And he takes over whenever John Winthrop isn't around. So why do I bring this up so much right this minute? Because, well, so there's these stories. And there's these stories about the heel guy, yes, he's an indentured servant for John Winthrop Jr., but they also bring up, I can't remember who brought it up, that he would, John Winthrop Jr. would go into the woods and take his servant Thomas with him to go look for gold. Yeah. In mines and in hills of, yeah. So I just was like, wait, what? Like, this sounds, so you're a treasure hunter, and he definitely knew how to do the sciences. So, and I'm not dogging him for knowing that. I'm just saying that's a really familiar story to Joseph. So I don't know what's going on there, but I do think that we can see the connections. Okay. And when we talk about all these different families like Lumen and the Walters, right? These are not poor backwood farmers. No, that's baloney for all of the above. Okay. Like the Walters were highly educated men. They had ties to elite Puritan society. They intermarried with who? Like the Cotton Mathers families and Winthrops and all these very fancy, highfalutin people. These are not, yeah, I was a little shocked because all of the freaking comments about Lumen Walters are terrible. And like I said, he like swore they said, and I can appreciate this. And I watch it for your guys' sake, especially because like I don't talk to anybody else but myself now, so it's not fun to swear at yourself. But y'all know that I need Jesus for swearing, and they say he made swearing sound musical, which cracked me up. And they also say he was a prominent folk magic practitioner and he was a treasure digger. And he had seer stones and everything. He was born in 1789 in Winchester to John Walter and Sarah Gleason. And John was very wealthy. He was a veteran of the Revolutionary War. He had a scientific education, Lumen did, in Paris. And he was known to have a magical toolbox with the following in it: a stuffed toad. Yeah. A rusty sword. We need that. And grimoires and magic stones. And then he had Cicero's orations, which he told people was something totally that it wasn't. And I don't even know why. I mean, he's kind of a con man. He tells them it's like magical and they've never seen anything like it before. So they're like, yeah, seems right. Where have we heard that before? Oh, wait. Anyway, lab items. And here's the most important one. He taught about blood sacrifices at midnight of sheep, roosters, and sluts, but that means a dog. Just so you know, we're not doing the human, no sluts, just dogs. They said a black slut because the dog was black. So do not come at me for that. It's in the paperwork. I didn't say it. It's bad all the way around. I don't care what you do. If you want to go out in the woods and be naked and do whatever you want to do, if you want to worship however you want to worship, leave the animals and the children alone. Like, I don't know why that's so difficult. We shouldn't have to kill any of the things. Like, I know people are going to come at me and be like, but the Bible, blah, blah, blah. And that, no, I don't want to hear it. I don't care. I don't care. I don't like killing things. That's weird. I'm not doing that. So anyway, we do know a lot of the information about Lumen Walters comes from, Abner Cole's articles. This isn't just like made up baloney that he was a prominent teacher of Joseph Smith. This is 100% because we've got all these different people's records. Okay. We got jail records for him juggling. Apparently that means like swindling people. Sounds like he's an asshole. Anyway, the Dutch Reformed Church letters. We got, let's see, Willers wrote letters about how the regular people were always traveling to consult Lumen Walters, and I quote, a pathway to prophethood. So Joseph Smith Jr. as a rodsman, village seer, and Judeo-Christian prophet. And that was from Mark Ashurst and Magic of 2000. And then Lumen Walters, a fuller consideration. These are all like the links or whatever if y'all want to go look it up. So it's not like I'm making this stuff up. And also the Hurlbut affidavits. That is a big one. So when I have been like, when I've talked before about certain things and I'm like, this is what's happening with Joseph said something like a toad, that's in the Hurlbut affidavits. And so those are huge. And he went around collecting evidence and different information against Joseph because of all of this, right? But I have never, ever, ever heard that Lumen Walters was directly related. Now they tiptoe around and say he might have been a cousin of somebody else. How about John Winthrop Jr.? Yeah, that's what they say. So that's not me. And I couldn't find 100% verification on that. But I will tell you, they intermarried like crazy, like crazy. There was another quote that said when he came back from Paris, he was godless. And so I don't really know what's going on with him or all of the different things with him. Maybe he was just super wild and, one of the weirdos of the family, but he's definitely not the only one because let us not forget, okay, that the Tuttles, which he's related through, are pretty wild in themselves. So, the Tuttles have got some little skeletons in their closet, aka scandals with Elizabeth Tuttle, who got a Puritan divorce in 1691, apparently through a huge scandal. You're not supposed to be able to do that, but she got pregnant, they say, out of wedlock. This is in the book Review of the Notorious Elizabeth Tuttle, Marriage, Murder, and Madness in the Family of, and it's by Jonathan Edwards and Jonathan M. Yeager, 2013. So apparently she had this baby born at 7 months after she got married. There was also a rumor that she sold alcohol to Native Americans. Hello. She's a bootlegger, I guess. Elizabeth's younger brother, Benjamin, got in a fight with his sister, and then she got killed. And I believe that was the axe murder. Yeah. 1676, he was executed for that. 1691, Mercy Tuttle. Oh, she's the one with the axe. So he just killed her, I guess. Mercy Tuttle apparently had, I quote, religious like craziness for real. I can't remember the exact name they said, but yeah, she went like religious psychosis for real. And she wanted to save her son because she was afraid that he was going to fall away from the church. So she took an axe to him while he slept. Holy freaking crap. That one is terrifying. Yeah. And they're literally neighbors, don't forget, okay, to the Winthrops. So William Tuttle. Yeah. And the Winthrops ruled in the case of Sarah Tuttle. And, she was just the one that was scandalous and kissed somebody. I don't know if y'all remember that one from last time, but he called her and I quote, bold virgin. That one cracked me up because she kissed somebody and she was alone with him. But she just got fined for unruly behavior, 20 shillings, which, whatever. William Tuttle helped to found the Winthrop Society. The Winthrop Society is interesting because we're not supposed to care about our bloodlines anymore because we're American and we're the melting pot of the world and la-di-da-di-da, right? Right? That's what they want Americans to believe is it does not matter anymore. But I think it matters, and this is why. This is their motto, and this is what it says. From their actual website, it says, whereas the Puritans of Massachusetts Bay Colony and their related Governor Winthrop immigrated to New England in 1630 to found a city on a hill, the Winthrop Society descendants of the Great Migration is dedicated to honoring and preserving their memory, philosophy, and tradition, and transmitting their example of courage, faith, civic duty, and integrity. Okay. So we have the Mayflower Society, we have the Winthrop Society, we have all these people, we have Mormons tracking, we have all these people tracking the bloodlines, but they're not supposed to matter. Okay. I think they do matter. I think they matter a lot. In fact, I know they do. And so when we look at all of this behavior, and not all of it is good, also, not all of it is bad. I'm not saying all of the people that are being tracked are bad or anything, but I just have to tell you guys, I mean, we're going to get into another family. We're going to get into the Goulds of Salem. And the Goulds are one of the main people involved in the Salem witchcraft trials. Who else are the Goulds to all of this is the Smiths and the Goulds intermarry for 6 generations at minimum. Okay. So these are not nobodies. I actually literally hate that they pretend that. I double hate, triple hate that they try to pretend like it doesn't matter because who are we seeing at these places? like the Lees, like you mean Robert E. Lee? Oh, I wonder. Or the Fullers or the Kingsburys or the Bennetts, and then you look at today and Grant, right? And you look at all of this stuff and you go, okay, they literally believe they are going to be gods. They don't pretend. They believe. They believe it. I mean, I don't know. And I hope somehow I can edit this, but I don't know if I can. I've already redone it twice and I keep coughing because of this stupid air. So, for those that don't know, Utah has one of the worst air qualities, like in all of the United States. It's ridiculous how bad it is. And now they're doing some weird weather modification. And yeah, I could go on and on about that for a long time, but it's bullshit. Of course, you know who's involved with that is the tech bros. So, yeah, that's crappy. But anyway, so all of this stuff that I'm telling you, if you aren't a Mormon or related to Mormons or anything, it is a big deal. If Lumen Walters, which he is, I mean, I'm telling you, I can prove it. The Daughters of the American Revolution proved it for me. Like, I don't think they're wrong. Him being related, knowing what I know is coming up with certain names that I just reread you, knowing what I know is coming up with the intermarriages of Salem in general, no wonder they don't want that out. But really, they're just hurting themselves because honestly, there's too much out there anymore. They need to let it go. They just do. And, on top of the fact of all of that stuff that I told you, there's also Uncle Lemuel Walters, who's John's brother. Okay, so that's the other brother. He was a very wealthy land surveyor and speculator. He founded also a town. Okay, he founded Burke, Vermont. He received military land warrants and was a land clearer while his brother was the surveyor. He was also a rodsman. Yeah, that's what they said. A rodsman. If you know anything about Mormonism, we're gonna get there, I promise. He used geomancy to do his job. So like water witching and everything, whatever. I don't care about that. I just care about the fact that they try to hide everything, whatever. William Tuttle was also exceptionally wealthy, and his original homestead forms the famous old campus at Yale today. Oh yeah. We're gonna Could you make it up? Like, no. That's so great. William was the primary signer of the 1639 Fundamental Agreement and was a pillar of the community. Scandals for him were just mostly like money wise. So I didn't hear any drunken whatever for these people. They seem to, I don't know what happened to Lumen. Maybe they dropped him. I don't know, but I do know this. The animal magnetism, it's going to come up again. And all these family ties, wild. The Goulds and the railroads, and we're going to get into all of it. But yeah, I mean, you can't make it up. I mean, let me reread this one more time. It's just, yeah. His original homestead forms the famous old campus at Yale today. Really? Okay. And don't even get me started on Skull and Bones. It's a whole thing. And I mean, obviously, we're going to get there, but bananas. So it's been super interesting to go down this whole rabbit hole. That is for sure. And a lot of this stuff is written, from like the records of the First Church of Boston. That's one of my other, little pieces of information verification. Like some of the stuff is really vetted, and other stuff is books. I can't prove that the authors vetted their stuff, but I mean, obviously they're published. So yeah, I never just use baloney because that's just going to get you in trouble. There was also, and I can't find it right now, some information about the Lumen Walter situation and the wood scrape. And for those of you that are from Mormonism, laughed a little, but yeah, we'll get there when we get there. But Lumen Walters was very interesting, and it's who they say that, Joseph got most of his magical information from. But here's my thing. If they're all related to John Winthrop Jr., and he's doing magic, alchemy, whatever you want to put the title on there, occult sciences. I don't care. I don't care what they're doing. I just care that they're lying. Okay. So it makes a lot more sense if he taught all the sisters, right? Dorcas and Susan and Anne, because Anne is a literal midwife, and that's on town record. If he taught them all, plus the fact that he's best friends with their brother, Thomas French, and I mean, that grandpa is raising the Smith's first son. He ends up living with them. Okay. And I got to find out the age, but I think it's quite young that he went there. I don't exactly know why the grandpa raised him, but that is what happened. And so I've got to figure that out one way or another, but fascinating, fascinating. Mormonism is never boring, never. And some of these nuggets, like this situation with Lumen Walters and the ties that I can literally prove, bananas. I just don't even have words, because if that is true, it throws out almost everybody's little piece of their magical worldview. And that's an old book, and it is a good book, but I'm just saying they kind of blame Lumen Walters for everything. But if this is and I've always said it, I've always said that I truly believe Lucy had a piece of this. And if so, right, if it comes down through the female healers, she was one. And she was also a lay midwife. And they were chased out of more than one town for witchcraft. Okay. And the Rodsman thing too, because why? Well, if these people that they called witches did have some sort of sight, which I mean, I don't think it was the ones that they persecuted that did. I think it's the family members that are related to John Winthrop Jr. But I mean, I'm not saying it's nefarious. I'm just saying if they had that gift, that makes a lot more sense. Like, come on. And why fight it so hard? Like, you got to, go and be crazy and, make sure nobody's saying this or that or the other for how many years? You're going to keep this up forever? Like, it seems bizarre with the internet. Like, you're going to get people that dive in, and I'm not the only one. I'm sure of that. The Refiner's Fire talks about definitely the John Winthrop thing multiple times. It's upstairs. I would show you guys it. But the Refiner's Fire by Brooke, it talks about this, and it talks about how they keep their community and how they're always staying together even when they move, and like how close they stay connected and intermarriage. And I'm sorry, but if you look at the FLDS, the fundamentalists who keep the rules the way they're supposed to be, they marry their family. They do. That's just what they do. And so I'm not here to judge it. I'm just here to tell you, like, these are puzzle pieces that fit. And so I know for a fact, because it was written in journals, that different people in the Smith family claimed to A, practice alchemy, to B, see or sight visions, whatever, and C, to, say that Joseph Smith was born in a call and that he was basically very special at birth. And then we know that Aleister Crowley called him a moonchild. And I don't think he's wrong in the thought process. Okay. Magic knows magic, and like recognizes like. They just do. And so for that is my quick and dirty episode for today. Hopefully I didn't give anybody a heart attack because I said the SLU, that's the literal quote, and I just quoted it. But And I didn't pick a color either. That was all them. But I'm just telling you what was said historically. And obviously, when we're talking about sacrifices, if you really want to get deep into it, and we will, we're going to get into what they had to do for Alvin, because Joseph Smith was given very clear instruction to bring Alvin with him. And there are only certain things that you can do if that person dies, and Alvin died. And it isn't rocket science. They dug him up. And I've said that on many, 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 many podcasts I've been on. So, yeah, there's that. For everyone else, my Patreon is definitely going to get Onassis first. I'm going to try, now that my kids are back in school, to start doing this twice a week. And I can't promise. The research is way harder, because to make a show that's even 1 hour long with no other person to banter with or questions or anything, whoa, it is like bananas research. And I know I keep saying bananas. I'm sorry. Anyway, it's a lot of research. And it's like multiple pages. It's 6 pages written, and I refuse to use AI to write it. It's against my, I will use AI to look things up and then go verify them. But other than that, that's all I use it for. Just because, no, I don't talk to it. I don't, none of that. And anybody can do whatever they want, but it's just not for me. So with that, I hope you guys put comments, questions, anything. I know it's quick and dirty. I know it might have pauses. It might be really stupid. I don't even know, but it is what it is. It's the best I can do right now. So hopefully eventually things will change, but I don't expect so for quite some time. So I'm hoping you like the history stuff. I'm wanting to get to a point where I do one more on like the Mormon Mafia type stuff, maybe at least every other week. And then the history, we're going to go straight down. And so next we'll be getting into the Hales side of things and from there. So it's a wild ride. I mean, I know a lot of the answers already because I've already studied a lot of it, and I just have to make it into a way to present it. But yeah, when I found out as many things as I found out, I was like, whoa, that's a lot. So whatever. I'll tell you, John Todd, though he has been discredited, and then he was thrown away into prison, and then nobody ever heard from him again. He said that at the Salem witchcraft trials, no witches were sacrificed. That the people that did the witchcraft were the ones that were accusing others. And the more I look, the more I find that might just be true. And every single time you get some whistleblower like that, they lie. I mean, they say that they either robbed a bank and that they, did some bad thing and they ended up in prison. So yeah, I'm noticing. Yeah. So anyways. One last thing on Winthrop, because I'm just looking at this. He was really interested in salt and salt mines and mining in general. I don't know if that's going to come up again in the future, so I'm just going to mention it now. He was said to have found gold in those hills that I told you guys about, and that he made gold rings with them from the gold he forged, like these rings, one ring to rule them all. No, he had 6. So apparently that's real. That's documented. And I don't know where that will lead for future. So I just want to throw that out there, especially with, alchemical stuff and salt and all the things. So, I mean, obviously, I think it's important. We're definitely going to get into saltpeter again. Not because people are horny, just because we need to go over it and the manufacturing of it and different people that were involved in that. Yeah. And we'll be doing that soon. So, as for me, Heidi Love, unfilteredrisepodcast.com. Find me on Patreon, Unfiltered Rise Podcast, and anywhere else that you do pod chasers. I should be everywhere, back up and running. I am on X. I am at Unfiltered Rise, and I am on Instagram, Unfiltered Rise as well. So you guys can find me at all the places, and hopefully I'll see you guys there. Bye.